What chance, good lady, hath bereft you thus? Comus. It was a quiet and still afternoon when I strolled forth within my goodly city of Edina. The confusion and bustle in the streets were terrible. Men were talking, women were screaming, children were choking. Pigs were whistling, carts they rattled, bulls they bellowed, cows they lowed, horses they neighed, cats they caterwauled, dogs they danced. Danced. Could it then be possible? Danced? Alas, I thought my dancing days were over. Thus it is ever. With a host of gloomy recollections will ever and anon be awakened in the mind of genius and imaginative contemplation, especially of a genius doomed to the everlasting and eternal and continual, as one might say, the continued, yes, continued and continuous, bitter, harassing, disturbing, and if I may allow the expression, the very disturbing influence of the serene and godlike and heavenly and exalted and elevated and purifying effect of what may be rightly termed the most enviable and the most truly enviable, nay, the most rightly termed the most benignly beautiful, the most deliciously ethereal, and as it were, the most pretty, if I may be use so bold an expression, thing, pardon me, gentle reader, in the world, but I am always led by my feelings. In such a mind, I repeat, what a host of recollections are stirred up by a trifle. The dogs danced. I could not. They frisked, I wept, they capered, I sobbed aloud, touching circumstances, which cannot fail to bring to recollection of the classical reader that exquisite passage in relation to the fitness of things, which is to be found in the commencement of the third volume of that admirable and venerable Chinese novel, The Foe Goes Slow. In my solitary walk through the city, I had two humble but faithful companions, Diana, my poodle, sweetest of creatures. She had a quantity of hair over her one eye, and a blue riband tied fashionably around her neck. Diana was not more than 5 inches in height, and her head was somewhat bigger than her body, and a tail being cut off exceedingly close gave an air of injured innocence to the interesting animal, which rendered her a favorite with all. And Pompey, my negro, sweet Pompey, how shall I ever forget thee? I had taken Pompey's arm. He was 3 feet in height, I like to be particular, and about 70 or perhaps 80 years of age. He had bow legs and was corpulent. His mouth shall not be called small, nor his ears short. His teeth, however, were like pearls, and his large, full eyes were deliciously white. Nature had endowed him with no neck, and had placed his ankles, as usual with that race, in the middle of the upper portion of the feet. He was clad with a striking simplicity, his sole garments with a stock of 9 inches in height, and a nearly new drab overcoat which had formerly been in the service of the tall, stately, and illustrious Dr. Moneypenny. It was a good overcoat. It was well cut. It was well made. The coat was nearly new. Pompey held it up out of the dirt with both hands. There were 3 persons in our party, and 2 of them had already been the subject of remark. There was a third. That person was myself. I am the Psyche. Sonora Psyche Zenobia. I am not Suki Snobs. My appearance is commanding. On the memorable occasion of which I speak, I was habited with a crimson satin dress, with a sky blue Arabian mantelet, and the dress had trimmings of green and graphis, and 7 graceful flounces of the orange-colored auricula. I thus formed the third of the party. There was the poodle, there was Pompey, there was myself. We were 3. Thus it is said there were originally but 3 furies, Melty, Nimi, and Hetty. Meditation, memory, and fiddling. Leaning upon the arm of the gallant Pompey and attended at a respectable distance by Diana, I proceeded down one of the populous and very pleasant streets of the now deserted Edina. On a sudden, there presented itself to view a church, a Gothic cathedral, vast, venerable, and with a tall steeple, which towered into the sky. What madness now possessed me? Why did I rush upon my fate? I was seized with an uncontrollable desire to ascend the giddy pinnacle, and then survey the immense extent of the city. The door of the cathedral stood violently open. My destiny prevailed. I entered the ominous archway. Where then was my guardian angel, if such angels indeed there be? If, distressing monosyllable, what a world of mystery and meaning and doubt and uncertainty is there involved in thy 2 letters. I entered the ominous archway. I entered, and without injury to my orange-colored auriculas. I passed beneath the portal and emerged within the vestibule. Thus, it is said the immense river Alfred passed, unscathed and unwetted, beneath the sea. I thought the staircase would never have an end. Round. Yes, they went round and up, and round and up, and round and up, until I could not help surmising what the sagacious Pompey, upon whose arm supported, I leaned in with all the confidence of early affection. I could not help surmising that the upper end of the continual spiral ladder had been accidentally, or perhaps designedly, removed. I paused for breath, and in the meantime, an accident occurred of a too momentous a nature and memorial, and also in a metaphysical point of view, to be passed over without notice. It appeared to me, indeed I was quite confident of the fact, I could not be mistaken. No. I had for some moments carefully and anxiously observed the motions of my Diana. I say I could not be mistaken. Diana smelt a rat. At once I called Pompey's attention to the subject, and he agreed with me. There was then no longer any reasonable room for doubt. The rat had been smelled, and by Diana. Heaven, shall I ever forget the intense excitement of the moment? The rat, it was there. That is to say, it was somewhere. Diana smelt the rat. I could not. Thus it is said that the Prussian Isis has, for some persons, a sweet and very powerful perfume, while to others it is perfectly scentless. The staircase had been surmounted, and as there were now only 3 or 4 more upward steps intervening between us and the summit, we still ascended, and now only 1 step remained. 1 step, one little step. Upon such a little step on the great staircase of human life, how vast a sum of human happiness or misery depends. I thought of myself, then of Pompey, and then of the mysterious and inexplicable destiny which surrounded us. I thought of Pompey, and alas, I thought of love. I thought of my many false steps which had been taken and may be taken again. I resolved to be more cautious, more reserved. I abandoned the arm of Pompey, and without his assistance, surmounted the one remaining step, and gained the chamber of the belfry. I was followed immediately afterward by my poodle. Pompey alone remained behind. I stood at the head of the staircase and encouraged him to ascend. He stretched forth to me his hand, and unfortunately in doing so was forced to abandon his firm hold upon the overcoat. Will the gods never cease their persecution? The overcoat is dropped, and with one of his feet, Pompey stepped upon the long and trailing skirt of the overcoat. He stumbled and fell. His consequence was inevitable. He fell forward, and with his accursed head, striking me full in the breast, precipitated me headlong, together with himself, upon the hard, filthy, and detestable floor of the belfry. But my revenge was sure, sudden, and complete. Seizing him furiously by the wool with both hands, I tore out a vast quantity of black and crisp and curly material and tossed it from me with every manifestation of disdain. It fell upon the ropes of the belfry and remained. Pompey arose and said no word, but he regarded me piteously with his large eyes and sighed. Ye gods, that sigh! It sunk into my heart. And the hair, the wool, could I have reached that wool, I would have bathed it with my tears, in testimony of regret. But alas, it was now far beyond my grasp. As it dangled upon the cordage of the bell, I fancied it alive. I fancied it that stood on end with indignation. Thus the happy dandy flows heiress of Java bears, it said, a beautiful flower which will live when pulled up by the roots. The natives suspend it by a cord from the ceiling and enjoy its fragrance for years. Our quarrel was now made up, and we looked around about the room for an aperture through which to survey the city of Edina. Windows there were none. The sole light admitted by the gloomy carriage proceeded from a square opening about a foot in diameter, at the height of about 7 feet from the floor. Yet what will the energy of true genius not effect? I resolved to clamber up to this hole. A vast quantity of wheels, pinions, and other cabalistic-looking machinery stood opposite the hole. Close to it, and through the hole, there passed an iron rod from the machinery. Between the wheels and the wall where the hole lay, there was barely room for my body. Yet I was desperate and determined to persevere. I called Pompey to my side. You perceive the aperture, Pompey. I wish to look through it. You will stand there just beneath the hole. So, now, hold out one of your hands, Pompey, and let me step upon it. Thus. Now, the other hand, Pompey, and with its aid, and I will get upon your shoulders. He did everything I wished, and I found, upon getting up, that I could easily pass my head and neck through the aperture. The prospect was sublime. Nothing can be more magnificent. I merely paused for a moment to bid Diana behave herself, and assure Pompey that I would be considerate and bear as lightly as possible upon his shoulders. I told him I would be tender of his feelings. I'll see tender beefsteak. Having done this justice to my faithful friend, I gave up myself with great zest and enthusiasm to the enjoyment of the scene which so obligingly spread itself out before my eyes. Upon this subject, however, I forbade to dilate. I will not describe the city of Edinburgh. Everyone who's been to the city of Edinburgh. Everyone has been to Edinburgh, the classic Edina. I will confine myself to the momentous details in my own lamentable adventure. Having, in some measure, satisfied my curiosity in regard to the extent, situation, and general appearance of the city, I had leisure to survey the church in which I was and delicate architecture of the steeple.